I never liked staying home alone. Even as a grown adult, there's something about an empty house that just feels wrong. The silence doesn't sit right. You start noticing things you never would when someone else is around. The ticking of the clock seems louder. The creaks of the floor sound more deliberate, like the house is breathing, like it's watching. Last winter, I house sat for my aunt while she was overseas. It was supposed to be simple: water the plants, feed the cat, check the mail. She lived in a quiet neighborhood, far from the city. No crime, no noise, just snow-covered streets and distant porch lights. I thought the silence would be peaceful. It wasn't. The first few days were fine. I worked remotely, enjoyed the quiet, and slept early. But on the fourth night, I started hearing it. A light tapping noise. Not from outside, from inside the house. At first, I thought it was just the heating. Old pipes knocking or something harmless. But this sound didn't come from the pipes. It came from the walls. It started behind the living room couch. Just light taps, almost like someone drumming their fingers gently. I turned off the TV and listened. It stopped. I walked over and pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. As soon as I sat back down, it started again. I tried to ignore it. But every night after that, it got worse. The tapping turned into scratching, and it wasn't just in one spot anymore. I'd hear it move from the living room to the hallway, then to the guest bedroom, like something was crawling inside the walls. One night around 2 a.m., I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone when I heard it right behind my headboard, a loud scraping sound, like nails dragging slowly through the drywall. I jumped out of bed, turned on the light, and the sound stopped instantly. I knocked on the wall. It sounded hollow, empty. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up, listening. The scratching started again around 3 a.m., this time from inside the ceiling. I could hear it above me, crawling slowly, dragging across the beams. I told myself maybe it was a raccoon or a squirrel, even though my aunt didn't have an attic. Just rafters and insulation. Nothing big enough to house something like that. But I clung to the idea because it was the only thing that made sense. Until the night I saw it. I was in the kitchen pouring a glass of water. It was late, maybe 1:30. I hadn't heard anything for hours, so I finally started to relax. But as I turned to head back upstairs, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. There was a shadow under the basement door. It stretched across the floor like someone was standing behind it. Not moving, just standing there. I froze. The glass slipped from my hand and shattered, and in that instant, the shadow vanished. I rushed to the door, yanked it open, and flipped the light on. The basement was empty. I didn't sleep that night either. I started locking every door inside the house. Bedroom, bathroom, even the closet. Something was wrong, and I couldn't explain it. I stopped hearing the scratching in the walls. Instead, I started hearing whispers. Not clear words, just soft, incoherent murmurs, like someone was whispering into the vents. I'd be in bed, and I'd hear it coming from the air ducts, from behind the light switches, even from the drain in the shower. The worst night was my last. I was in the bedroom, bundled under the covers with the door locked. Every light in the house was on. I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the bedroom light flickered. Once, twice. Then it went out. So did the hallway light, then the kitchen. One by one, every light in the house turned off. My phone was on the nightstand. I reached for it with shaking hands and turned on the flashlight. As I did, I heard something from the hallway. Footsteps, heavy, slow, deliberate. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath. I didn't move. The light from my phone shook in my hands. Then the doorknob turned. It was locked, but it kept turning, rattling harder and harder. Then it just stopped. Silence. I stood up slowly, heart pounding in my throat. I stepped back toward the far corner of the room, still holding the light. Then I heard it again, not from the hallway, but from inside the room. A quiet, scraping sound, coming from the wall behind the closet. I stepped closer and the sound got louder, a dragging, sliding noise. Then a knock. 1, 2, 3, right against the wall. My phone buzzed suddenly. A text. I looked down. It was from my own number. The message read, "I'm inside." I dropped the phone and ran. I didn't care what was in the house anymore. I just needed to get out. I flung the bedroom door open.